Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. Today, we're going to be looking at Bitcoin and its valuations against the US dollar, recapping what happened over the weekend and the long weekend for some of you in the States who are enjoying July 4th holiday today, I believe. Um, but we'll wrap up what has happened over the weekend and what's happening today and kind of just paint it over the general long term that we have here. So for the past 2 days, so the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, Bitcoin had some pretty good days. Saturday we had like a 2.5% increase, followed by a one and 3/4% increase on the Sunday, closing giving us a close of the week at like about 35,243. Um, in the grand scheme of things, nothing really has changed with Bitcoin. It's still at the same price as it was, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. You could bring it up as far as say, May 19th, where we wicked down to this level or through this level. So again, nothing really has changed. And this weekend hasn't really changed anything. This weekly close, and we'll flip it to the weekly close. Uh, as you can see, hasn't done much, right? Hasn't really done much. Today we're opening the week down. So we're down 4.37% for the week. Um, the rest of the market's also kind of responding the same way, where altcoin Bitcoin valuations are remaining somewhat neutral, and then the U.S. dollar valuations is coming down. Because they're not outpacing Bitcoin, they're not bleeding more than Bitcoin, so that it's just the U.S. dollar equivalent percentage loss to Bitcoin, relatively speaking. So with that said, we're down, 4% for the week today, sure. But looking at the past, performances, we're still at levels that we were previously. That nothing much has changed. We're still in the region that we have here for several weeks. It's been what, 2, 4, 6. We're going on to our eighth week this week of being in this range. And 8 weeks below the 20-week moving average. It's been pretty much 2 months below. And we're coming into July. We're in the midst of summer, and uh, I believe this will continue for the rest of the summer. So we're talking about July, we're talking about August, and hopefully sometime in the fall, we finally have some sort of base, and we're starting to move out of it. Okay, so with that said, like if this region here is the base, then by fall, by September or some mid-September, we should be, entering out of the region. In my opinion, that's how I feel like it should happen at the very least. We could see something earlier, and we'll talk about that in a minute. One thing to take into consideration is looking at the daily chart. Um, we're kind of pushing lower lows here, lower highs, which is kind of concerning. So if you draw out all these and you see the resistances of these moves here, excluding this one, but every single time we come up to this line where we're meeting resistance. So we're having a downward trend of resistance on Bitcoin for the past, well, however many days it's been since May 19th. And so this is a little concerning. We're coming down. We're not able to break through it. We're not able to create higher highs, higher local highs, if you want to call it. And in this situation, that is to be expected. um, Things to take note of. We are holding support in this region here. Okay, so whether you want to attribute that to the yellow line here, like we did from this wick, or from the bottom of the box, where you can see we wick to many times, and we've been at these levels many times, but we keep on bouncing. All right, another one to take into consideration is the 50-week moving average, which is represented by this teal line here. It is rising. Okay, it's rising at a relative speed, and actually we would see some kind of convergence. Some point in July, whether that's the middle of July or at the beginning of July, somewhere around in July, we should see the 50-week moving average, converge into the box, all right? Much like how we were talking about, earlier when we were still talking about the what was the moving average? I think it was like the 20-day moving average. Yeah, or something like that, where it's entered into the box. Um, we're now talking about the 50-week moving average now moving into this region here, which is something to take note again. So imagine this. We're hitting resistance on this downward line of resistance. We're holding support at a rising 50-week moving average. The price is getting squeezed. Okay, the price is getting squeezed on the weekly, and we potentially could see some kind of move out of that. And there are other factors to go along with it, but that is one way to look at it. The downward trend of resistance is bringing the price down. The 50-week moving average is holding as support, at least in one instance, okay, which was 2 weeks ago. But these are converging, and they are getting squeezed, and we should see some kind of breakout one way or the other. Another thing to take into consideration is the RSI, which I have here, and you can see that the current RSI is at 43.75. And something that we have been talking about at length is this area here, roughly speaking, at 43.54 RSI. You can see that in multiple cases, this is where we are, but we've held resistance here, or sorry, support here. We've held support here and here, and also resistance here. So you could, and if you want to say, you could say resistance, resistance. So this is a pretty interesting line on the RSI, and we're right on it. We've been on it for several weeks now, since May, at this line. So again, we are seeing it converge. We're on a line, okay, of support on the RSI. If you want to bring it to second level, you could see on the Bollinger Bands. So I don't necessarily use the Bollinger Bands. I use the width. I take into account the width of the Bollinger Bands, and you could see that. I think it was on the daily. Was it on the daily? No, it's on the weekly. That we're coming up to this line here. Okay, again, another line of support, or not support, but like a line of a breakout, right? You can see that it kind of bounces. If it goes below, then it does go below sometimes, but in this general area here, we should see a rebound or some kind of breakout from when looking at the Bollinger Bands. We are trending up, but this can easily come back down should Bitcoin not move, or if we can imagine it being squeezed, volatility gets diminished, gets reduced, and so therefore Bollinger Bands start to squeeze. We could see it hit this yellow line here or be relatively near that region, and then we see a bounce. So taking into account the downward trend of resistance, taking into account the 50-week moving average, taking into account the RSI and the Bollinger Bands, everything's leading to some kind of breakout sometime in June, or sorry, sometime in July. Now, with that said, let's assume that it breaks up, right? These are the past 8 weeks. We've been below the 20-week moving average, holding the 50-week moving average. Maybe, July, August is where we see some kind of response from Bitcoin that ensues a recovery. Does this immediately lead to a new all-time high, or are we going back? Are we back in business basically? I don't. I think it's too soon to say. It's definitely a time to be kind of cautious, and time to be, a little conservative in your expectations. One thing that we have seen in the past that happens many times is Bitcoin rallying to the 20-week moving average. So we see a rally to the 20-week moving average and an ultimate rejection from it. Okay. When we look at, say, the last two cycles, right, we see resistance, a hold of the 20-week moving average before breakout happens. Um, and so that's something that we also have to keep in mind as well. We can go back to the previous cycle as well, and you see it happen. A failed test of the 20-week moving average. This is the only time where we broke the 20-week moving average coming from the bottom on the first time around. Every time, every single time. Other than that, it needed a rejection first, at least once. So with that said, even if we see a breakout from what we saw of this of the 50-week moving average holding as support and it breaks up, the Bollinger Bands say that a breakout's imminent. The RSI, is holding on the line, and we should bounce from it. um, all of that leads to some kind of breakout, but it doesn't necessarily lead to an indication that things are back in business. What I expect will happen, and what I've always expected, at some point Bitcoin will rally to the 20-week moving average, get rejected, come back down, and then at least the second time around we can start talking about breaking the 20-week moving average. Having said that, I will keep an open mind. If it breaks the 20-week moving average the first time, then it does, and hallelujah. Like I want Bitcoin to break the 20-week moving average. I just try to be a little conservative in my expectations on how that's going to play out. Breaking it the first time is the best case scenario. Best case scenario. Odds are best case scenario never happens. So with that said, even if it does rally, we'll be happy about it, but the 20-week moving average is still above us. Okay, and with percentage terms, we are we're 28% below the 20-week moving average. So pretty far away, to say the least. A 30% rally is a lot for Bitcoin, in a week or something. This is obviously going to have to play out over several weeks, at least in my opinion. Even a move to the 20-week moving average will happen in a span of weeks. It will take weeks for it to play out. And even before then, we have to have some kind of, breakout of some sort that gets us out of this range at the very least. Anyway, that's all for today, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye bye.